Hello everyone. I'm a debate teacher from the Practical English Application Institute, otherwise known as PI, here in Seoul, South Korea. And I'm here today to give you a tutorial on flowing. Now, flowing is something that most formal debaters make use of. And the key thing about the flow is that it is organized by argument as opposed to speaker. And this allows future speakers to stay organized regardless if the speaker before them was unorganized or not, because you're flowing by argument instead of speaker. So this is an invaluable tool, particularly for the rebuttal speeches and rebuttal responses. So today's going to be a semi-long tutorial. I'm trying to shorten it as much as possible on how to flow using the provided templates from PI. What we use at PI is world-style parliamentary debate, which is a 3 speakers per team, 4 speeches per team style of debate. And this is a flow that I self-invented, thinking that it would be an easier way to teach students. Now, if you use a different type of flow, that is fine. If you use a blank piece of paper, you can definitely kind of copy this format to a blank piece of paper or adapt it for your own needs. British style, parliamentary, etc. So before we begin, let's look at this topic-specific shorthand. This topic-specific shorthand basically is a simple way to shorten what you are writing without losing meaning. Now, a couple of examples of shorthand, not necessarily topic-specific shorthand, would be, for example, you would say without equals W/O. These are common abbreviations. With equals W/ Topic specific. Today I'm going to be debating myself against on the topic apple juice is better than water. So for here, of course, I'm going to want to write apple juice, give an abbreviation for apple juice, and I'm just going to do AJ. And water, if I were writing, I might be able to do W with a circle or W with a square around it, but because I'm typing it, I'm a little bit more limited, so I'm just going to do W in a capital letter. I'm going to start by giving some proposition a hook, some status quo information, and definitions. Now, most of that isn't really relevant to the debate. I'm not going to attack their status quo or their introduction. So instead, I'm just going to write their definitions. Apple juice equals made from apples. And water, well, I see I'm already pushing over, so I'll just pretend water equals H2O. All right. The first proposition argument is apple juice is tastier than water, which makes it better. And I'll give examples. Kids like it, sweeter, has a flavor in general. And that's going to be, in essence, my first argument. My second proposition argument is going to be that apple juice has vitamins, which makes it healthier. And I'll give proof of this by saying that apple juice comes from apple juice. Apple juice comes from apples, and doctors recommend. So in essence, this is my proposition, entire first 2 arguments in the beginning of the case. Now I'm going to move on to my first opposition speaker, and in order to make this as clear as possible, I will try to speak in a deeper voice. Hello, I am the first opposition speaker, and I will start by challenging the definitions. Apple juice is anything that tastes like apples, and it could be made from sugar and water with a little of flavor. My first opposition argument, I'm going to come over here to the opposition case argument and say that water is healthier because it has no sugar, and apple juice has a lot of sugar. And my second opposition argument is going to be that water has more uses. I can bathe in it, I can water plants, I can drink it, etc. Water can be used to make so many things. Water is so good. Now I'm going to come over here and respond to the proposition case arguments. The second proposition case argument was that apple juice has vitamins, which makes it healthier. However, there are many other ways to get the vitamins in apple juice. Many ways to get vitamins. And apple juice has sugar, which makes it unhealthy. My attack against the first proposition argument is that apple juice is tastier. but it's tastier because it has sugar. Sugar equals bad. Water is better. My first opposition speaker went through in order, introduced its own two arguments, and then attacked. Now, I attacked specifically out of order, so that way you could see that you're not necessarily always going to go in order. As a speaker, you should try your hardest to go in order by argument every single time, and what that means is go 1, 2, 1, 2. But the other speaker may not be as talented as you are, and they might go out of order, and you need to be able to think about what it is that they are saying and put it in the appropriate row so that way you do not lose your organization. For the second proposition speaker, I'm actually going to move into a different color. Now, the way that I've designed this flow sheet is to be able to be used with a minimum of 2 colors. You can see that I did not change colors between the first proposition and the first opposition speaker, and that is because this flow is specifically designed with different color columns to separate proposition speakers from opposition speakers. So it's okay to write in the same color for the first 2 speakers because they're distinguished by another manner. Now, if you were flowing on a blank piece of paper or somehow recreating this on a blank piece of paper, you would absolutely want to flow the first proposition and first opposition speakers in different colors. So if you're flowing this on a blank piece of paper, I would highly encourage 4 entirely separate colors, but I'm doing this with a minimal number of colors as possible. So my second proposition speaker I will flow in light blue, and I will start by extending upon my definition. So I'll say, no, the opposition challenged our definitions, but apple juice, as the name implies, says that apples should be made from apples, right? Apple juice should absolutely be made from apples. So I'll just add to that as a form of rebuttal and showing that I am, in fact, attacking against the opposition's definition challenge. Then I'll come over here to the first proposition argument and I'll summarize and defend it. Our first proposition argument is that apple juice is tastier. Kids like it. It is sweeter. It has better flavor. The other team came up here and said that it has a lot of sugar and sugar is bad. And while definitely this may be true in some cases, the apple juice we are talking about is apple juice made from water. You can buy apple juice without a lot of sugar, without sugar added at all. So you can buy completely organic or no sugar added apple juice, which is healthy and tasty. Then I'll come over here. The second proposition argument is that apple juice has vitamins, and which is healthy. So if you drink apple juice, you will get a lot of the required vitamins. The opposition team said that there are many ways to get vitamins, and apple juice has sugar. And I will say that yes, other ways, but talking about water versus apple juice, water has no vitamins. Apple juice better. So here I'm trying to link it specifically to the topic that says, yes, there are many other ways, but apple juice is better than water because water doesn't have vitamins and apple juice does. So I'm trying to prove my point here. The third proposition argument I will write here, let's see, it'll be apple juice, change colors here, apple juice helps economy and farmers, etc. So apple juice is really good for the economy. There's a lot of farmers who have to produce the apples that turn into apple juice. It's great for businesses, etc. So that is my third proposition argument. Over here, my proposition response, I'll attack the first opposition argument, which is that water is healthier because it has no sugar. And I will say that sugar isn't bad only if you eat too much of it. So by itself, sugar isn't too bad, and apple juice has vitamins. So you should be able to see kind of here that this second proposition argument and this first opposition argument is really beginning to clash. We're talking a lot about sugar and healthiness, and even over here, apple juice is tastier. Well, it has sugar. So I'm actually going to combine clashes 1 and 2, and I can see this already. And I'll call this clash 2 plus 1. So I'm beginning to see kind of how the debate is developing, and if I were a rebuttal speaker, I could already begin to plan for it. my proposition response to the second opposition argument is that water has more uses. You can bathe in it, you can water plants, you can drink it. However, when it comes to being a drink, apple juice is best. So apple juice is better to drink than water. And this seems to be pretty independent, so I can't really combine it with any clashes so far. Now I'll move on to opposition speaker, and I'll deepen my voice again. And as I did with the second proposition speaker, I will also write in this light blue in order to distinguish the difference between the first opposition speaker and the second opposition speaker. Alright, as you see, I went through and I already filled out the opposition second speaker arguments just to save time. So I've added on to each of the first two arguments, introduced a third argument, and then rebutted against all three of the proposition case arguments. So now for the proposition rebuttal speaker, I'm going to go through and look and see if I have any major clashes that I can add other than this one that I've already combined. You can see that a lot of the arguments are pretty much the same and an extension of one another. Now moving on to the rebuttal speaker, the first thing that you want to think of as the rebuttal speaker is that as these arguments are developing in the first four speeches, you can already begin to see kind of the way that the debate is going. So I've already marked clashes, 2 and 1 over here, 2 and 1 over here, and you can see that if I had wanted to, I could have taken notes on some potential arguments that I wanted to make. So if I were the rebuttal speaker, I could have already started to make notes. Apple juice is healthiest because blah blah blah, and then I could actually take the flow up with me during my speech, and then I have an instant reference by argument of what it is that I need to be saying and where I need to be talking. So this is a very useful tool for the rebuttal speakers, especially because you do not have prep time before your speech. So if you kind of flow on one end and write your own ideas on your own column, then it can be a very valuable and useful tool. Now this also applies, of course, to any speaker that is responding to another argument. You can definitely use this as a notepad to fill up the arguments that you would want to make when you go up there. And I always encourage you to write your own notes in a completely separate colored pen. So theoretically a third colored pen here. I'm using red for the proposition just because I like a lot of different color pens. Now I will go through and see if I can combine any other clashes. Now what a clash is a clash is any argument that has been attacked or has a disagreement on. So you may define clashes a little bit differently, but for my class, that's how I define a clash. And you can see here, even if this third proposition argument doesn't technically combine with any other argument, it should still be considered a clash. Now, I have technically combined these three things into one clash, so just to make sure that I'm making this as numerically correct as possible, I'm actually just going to all combine them into clash 1. So you'll see clash 1, clash 1, clash 1, and that unites them all together. To label this clash 3 would be incorrect, and you don't want the judge to think, wait, where's that second clash? Did I miss it? So I'll call this clash number 2. Opposition argument does not have anything to add to it. It is itself in contestation. There was a clash there. Opposition disagrees with proposition, so I'll call this clash 3, and I'll call this clash 4. So this is a basic summary of what the clashes might look like. So if I were proposition rebuttal speaker, I would go through and I would talk about clash 1, and I'll only flow in the first box for the most part, just because I know that everything that's labeled clash 1 can also be extended to that first box. So I'll go ahead here and just write extend, and I, as a debater or as a judge, know I now have to combine all of these rows together because they are part of the same clash. So for clash 2, blah, blah, blah. Clash 3, Again, I'm commenting on it, blah, blah, blah. Now notice I'm going in order as much as possible. You want to go in order of the argument, not what the previous speaker did. And this just makes it clear for everyone who's trying to keep notes. And then here, clash 4, blah, blah, blah. And for the rebuttal speaker, I would basically do the same thing. I would go in the same order of the proposition rebuttal. So I would come over here and I'd say blah, blah, blah. I don't have to argue on clash 1 of these extra boxes here because they're part of the same. They can extend it. Blah, 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 etc., etc., until it's done. I don't have a column here for the reply speaker because the reply speaker's job is to go a little bit off of flow. They are no longer referencing arguments, but rather they're giving a summary of basically everything on the flow. So I like to use a separate piece of paper to kind of draw my initial impressions upon it. So there is not a space here for the reply speaker, although this can be a very valuable tool for the reply speaker as well. And that is it for world-style parliamentary flowing at PI.